There's a lot that goes on for Penelope in this season that by the end I was just like, oh my gosh, has this been her villain origin story? Like, are we gonna go into season 3 with like more of a villainous Penelope? Kristen here, and we are talking about Bridgerton season 2. Based on the sequel book, The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn, we head into this new season of courtship centered around the eldest Bridgerton son, Anthony, played by Jonathan Bailey, and his quest to find a bride. But Anthony's biggest dilemma is that he is kind of afraid of love and really would rather focus on duty when it comes to finding his Viscountess.
It is only out of the greatest love of my family that I aim to choose a bride with my head and not my heart.
This leads him to focus in on newcomer Edwina Sharma, played by Charithra Chandra, and he has to prove himself to her headstrong older sister Kate, played by Simone Ashley, to get her blessing, but the two of them end up finding themselves drawn together despite their initial disdain for one another.
The sister.
So there's a little bit more of like a love triangle going on in this season, or maybe a love-hate love triangle. That first episode really dragged. It felt painfully long. And I think that's something that this whole season struggles with. It's a lot slower. You're kind of like, how are these people going to get together? And it sort of doesn't happen until the last possible second. So whereas in that first season, you had Simon and Daphne kind of going back and forth, they had that whole strangers to enemies to friends to lovers story going on, and they had a lot of like racy romantic scenes. This kind of strays away from that and goes more of a slow burn, classic Regency feel. You don't really get those romantic moments that you got in that first season until the very, very end of this season, which some people might not enjoy. But when they do finally give you those Anthony and Kate moments, they're very subtle, they're very romantic and tension-filled, and kind of give you vibes of classics like Pride and Prejudice.
My honor is hanging by a thread.
And of course, it is so exciting to see South Asian women being the romantic leads of this show. I will say, though, I was hoping for more diversity throughout this series as a whole. I feel like we had Simon in that first season, now we have the Sharma sisters, and it just feels like you kind of like bring in this diversity as like a little pocket to surround the white Bridgerton family. This is just something that I feel like I started noticing because I thought that the show overall, when it first was introduced, was, touting itself as like very diverse. And I feel like there were like some moments maybe over the course of the seasons where they were hinting that certain characters might be LGBTQ, or that, we just might focus on some other characters and give them shine. And then they kind of didn't do that. I think a great example of that is the boxer Will, who in the first season, he had this friendship with Simon, and so that's kind of what kept him in the show. And now in the second season, he's still there, but it's kind of like they didn't know what to do with him. And it's like, give this guy something to do. I think the other thing is, the Bridgertons as a whole, there's a lot of them. There's like 8 whole Bridgerton kids, and there's at least 3 of them that they never really talk, they never really show up in the series very much. And so I'm like, how are we supposed to be building this world when there's like this missing link between certain characters? They could just do, I think, a better job of keeping the world diverse and also bringing in all of these characters and giving them something to do that we've already been introduced to. It just sort of feels like you're wasting the actors in a way. I want to talk a little bit more about Simon and Daphne parallel to Anthony and Kate, because I do think that there are some very intriguing parallels, especially in how father figures and traumas from the past influence how they see love. In the first season, Simon's father, had a very big impact on him to the point where he didn't even want to have kids. And now you sort of got that 180 over to Anthony, who, watched his father die in front of him. And after that was like, I never want to find love. I never want to be close to people. And Kate also has lost her father. The both of them feel this sense of duty that like they have to do the right thing. Doesn't matter what they want. Nobody's like kind of forcing this on them. They're sort of forcing it on themselves. But they've like taken on this sense of duty that they think is more important than love. And of course, we got to give a little shout out to Rupert Evans, who plays Edmund Bridgerton in flashbacks, as a lot of us know him as Harry from Charmed. I want to talk about Lady Whistledown because I feel like there's a big shift in the way that we see her story in season 1 versus season 2. This shouldn't be a spoiler because if you're watching season 2, hopefully you saw season 1, but Penelope is Lady Whistledown. In season 1, we really saw Lady Whistledown as this secret, as this mystery. We didn't know who was behind it until the very, very end. We're like, who is this person who has kind of like infiltrated high society and knows all these secrets? Whereas in season 2 now, we're seeing this from Penelope's perspective as like a businesswoman, like as someone who has been stifled of her voice and is using her pen and paper to get her voice and her thoughts out there, and has this power and is basically building her own business. And I thought that was really cool to see. I think also there's a lot that goes on for Penelope in this season that by the end I was just like, oh my gosh, has this been her villain origin story? Like, are we gonna go into season 3 with like more of a villainous Penelope / Lady Whistledown? Because I am here for it. Like, just the way that things ended for her, especially with Eloise and Colin, I was like, oh, I am ready for season 3. I cannot wait to see what's going on with Penelope next. The last thing I want to discuss is the music in this season. I gotta say, I think one of the things that really made Bridgerton stand out in season 1 was that epic modern music given a classical spin, and they had incredible songs like Thank You Next, Ariana Grande. It's like, what? This is showing up in a Regency era show? And I gotta say, I was not impressed with the music for this season. I mean, they enter with Material Girl. I was hoping to see some more like very popular songs that, you're just like, what? Like Body by Megan Thee Stallion or something like that, I was just a little bit underwhelmed by the musical choices this season. And that's something I think was very highly anticipated for me and I'm sure a lot of other people. When it comes down to it, I'm honestly just curious to hear about other people's thoughts on this season of Bridgerton. Like, did you guys like it? What are you thinking? Because when I finished it, I was sort of like, I enjoyed it. I had fun watching it, but I don't think it was as good as the first season. I think it was missing a little bit of that spark, and maybe that also has to do with, how slow things were and how long it took to get to some of those more romantic, chemistry-led moments. Again, I think that there's something missing when it comes to the way that they're, 1, tackling diversity, and 2, tackling all of these characters that they've introduced and giving some of them almost no screen time or no real story to explore. I think maybe if I hadn't seen season 1, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is great. But because season 1 was so like viral, like so out in the stratosphere, like such a hit, this to me is like, oh, I just didn't think it was as good. And it has nothing to do with the actors. I think the actors really were bringing it. I think it really more had to do with the pacing and the musical choices. Even when we finally get to the end and have the love story kind of come full circle and come together, it felt very abrupt, and then it was over, and I was like, oh, okay. I kind of wished that there was a little bit more, which is ironic because the beginning was so slow and dragged out, and then by the end I was like, come on, give me a couple more episodes just to really, flesh everything out. But I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. What did you think about this new season? And do you feel like they're going to be able to keep the momentum going for future seasons, as well as the Queen Charlotte show that they're supposed to be doing a spin-off with? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because right now I'm not so sure. So make sure to leave a comment down below and let me know. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and if you want to talk more TV and movies with me outside of the comments section, check out the exclusive Discord available on my Patreon at patreon.com/kmaldo. If you like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here. See ya!